Hi, my name is Hannah. Welcome back to my channel, Savage Reads. I hope you are ready for another craft update before I talk about the books that I have read recently, because I have been doing a lot more painting and a little bit of knitting. So let's start with my knitting project. I am knitting a shirt, and so far I have just kind of started on the back of the shirt. It isn't very far, but I'm purposely trying to slow down on this. Keep you updated on how this goes. I really like the color, and the feel of this yarn is great. It has such a nice drape. It is a cotton yarn. It is the Drops Bell yarn. And so I'm really excited about how this is turning out, but let me show you some of the paintings that I have been working on. I will for sure be tagging Katie Joggling Art again because her tutorials are so fantastic, and not only am I able to follow her tutorials and make a painting that I like, but I feel like I am learning a lot of principles each time that I do one, so that I feel more and more confident to take some painting strides on my own, and I'm really excited about it. So let me show you what I have from this last week. I wanted to paint something nice for my mother for Mother's Day, and so I painted this jar of tulips, and I really like how the jar turned out. I think it's really fun, and I needed to do one for my mother-in-law as well. And so I decided on this field of lavender, and I absolutely love how this turned out. It was really fun, and I learned a lot from it. And then the other painting that I finished yesterday was these trees, and I love these. I think this was so fun, so much fun to figure out, so much fun to learn. And yes, I can figure out the perspective and the shading and such better, but I really enjoyed the process of trying to figure this out, and I love how it turned out. So those are the paintings that I've done in the last week. I really do feel like I'm seeing an improvement in my skills, and I'm excited about it. I've only been doing this for a few weeks, and I'm really happy with the results, and I want to just keep at it, keep doing the tutorials, and then branch out and start doing some of my own things as I learn more and more of these skills. So that is what I have done for now, but let's talk about some of the books that I have read recently. This first book was a recommendation from Jolene at Bookworm Adventure Girl, so I will make sure to tag her channel down below. And this was John Candy, A Life in Comedy by Paul Myers. And so this is just going over the life of John Candy, a famous Canadian comedian. Now, I picked up this book on Jolene's recommendation because I thought it sounded interesting. And he had a lot of contact with people that I know a lot about and was interested in, but I guess I don't know a ton about John Candy. I haven't watched all of his movies. All I could really think of was Cool Runnings, and he had a part in Little Shop of Horrors, and those were kind of my reference points for John Candy. So I thought that it was an interesting book, but I think had I been a bigger fan, I would have liked it a lot more, especially because of the way that this was written. I think that this book was written for a fan. It gives some of the background on his life, and has these glowing reviews from the people who knew him and how much they loved him. And so I couldn't quite tell what this book was trying to do. It did a good job at getting you that inside scoop to John Candy's life. So if that's what you want, I think you'll like this book. But if you wanted an in-depth portrait of a troubled artist, I feel like it scratches a little bit of the surface there. And if you wanted just glowing eulogies of John Candy, I think this book does give you that. I think where it left me feeling a little bit strange was how much it focused on his weight being a contributor to his early death. Now, of course, there are likely some health issues that he was struggling with that his weight contributed to. But for a book about a man who did not like to be defined by his size, the amount that it talked about his weight, I found to be kind of off-putting. And so maybe that was just me being too sensitive looking at it, but I honestly thought that they focused too much on his weight for bringing up that this was a man who specifically did not want people to only think of him based on his size. And so I did find that to be a little off, but it was interesting seeing some of the comedy seen, especially in Canada. I found it interesting that a lot of the times they would mention a movie that I'm like, oh, I do know that one. Was he in that one? And he'd pass on that project, and then he'd be in another project that I'd never seen. So I just don't know if I am necessarily the perfect target audience for this, but if you love John Candy, I think you would like this book. The channel Zero Shelf Control recommended the book Fever Dream by Samantha Schweblin. Now, this was a bit like a fever dream. It really is just kind of blurring those edges from reality and fiction. You definitely get that sense. I found it to be a little bit on the forgettable side. It is very short and it is very strange, but by 2 days after getting through this book, I didn't remember much about it. And so I thought it was okay. It was an interesting book. It is a translated book from Spanish. And I do think that it is interesting because it's short. You get to play around a little bit with this dreamlike, surreal unreality. But I also found it a little bit forgettable. So I'm a little bit in the middle on this one. I think it was an interesting concept, but I don't know if I'm gonna remember it in a month. Now, this next book was a recommendation from Redhead Reading, and this is The Garden Against Time in Search of a Common Paradise by Olivia Lang. And this is a nonfiction book that really is quiet and filled with musings about gardens. You get some historical kind of essays about different gardens throughout time, what gardens mean, what politically they mean, what they mean to individuals, and it was an okay book. I just found my attention span to not really be there with this one, but I have a struggle with this type of book in general because it doesn't have such a strong narrative. This is the kind of book where you sip tea while reading it, or you listen to it while you work out in your garden and muse about gardens. And I have never really loved yard work, and so maybe that is some of why I didn't connect with it quite as strongly. But if you love a meditative, reflective book that gives you some historical anecdotes, but really is just about the feeling that you have around it, I think you would like this, especially if you love that nature and gardening. But I was not quite in the right headspace to be quite so meditative. So I find it a little tricky to get into, but I thought that it was written really well. It's just, who are you? And is this your kind of book? So this next book was also a recommendation from the channel Redhead Reading, and I also had a comment recommending it, so of course I had to make sure that I got to this book. And it is another kind of reflective book. This is The Heart-Shaped Tin, Love, Loss, and Kitchen Objects by B. Wilson. This is one of those reflective and introspective books about kitchen utensils and the meaning and the feelings that we have behind them. Now, I did appreciate that this one had a little bit more of a narrative thread running through it because this is the author discussing her divorce and the struggles she had afterward, her grief over losing that relationship, and this heart-shaped tin that she had that reminded her of her ex-husband. It was a really great thread to hold this book together because I do find myself getting lost in these meditative ones, but not in a good way, but in more of a, where am I? What was I reading about? I don't know, kind of way. And I thought that understanding her perspective going through, I felt that really strongly throughout that moving forward and healing. This book did cause me to do some personal reflection on what objects I find important. It had those historical anecdotes. It does kind of meander a little bit, but kitchen things are definitely one of my areas of interest, so I was a little more engaged in this one than the one about gardening. So if you want a reflective book that talks you through the importance of kitchen utensils, this was really nice. I enjoyed it, but after this one and the gardening one, I am in the mood for a faster paced, narrative driven book. So if you like something more meditative, both of these books were great. If you like gardening, go with The Garden Against Time. If you like kitchen equipment, go with The Heart-Shaped Tin. And I think both of these did very similar things, discussing the importance that we attach to different things as humans and giving you some of that historical background. So overall, I am glad that I read both of these, but I don't know if they are always my kind of book that I run to right away, because I do like that stronger narrative thread. That is what I have read the last week or so. If you have thoughts on these books, let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you all on the next one.